All right, we should be live. Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Skiba. I'm the Executive Artistic Director for Cleveland Opera Theater. Welcome to Page to Stage, our weekly series where we look at the process of bringing
My name is Scott
live
Skiba. I'm
opera
the executive.
to the stage, literally from page to the stage. And today we have with us Mike Telin, who is the Executive Editor of ClevelandClassical.com. So welcome, Mike. Excited to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much. When you ask, we have a long history, which we can or can't talk about, whatever.
No, it's
How-
all good. They're all good.
yeah. However, I've had a lot of fun thinking back over the past few years in preparation for this. So thanks so much for asking.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So typically on this series, what we'll start with is asking the guest, how did you arrive at being a music critic? You sprung forth and you thought, I will be a critic, or did you come at it from a different path?
Oh, like most music critics, I came about it. The last thing I ever thought I would be is a music critic or even a music journalist. Although I've certainly been reading music criticism since I was a kid, junior high, when I first really started getting into it. But to get directly to your answer, I'm also one of the few writers actually who was trained as a musician and made their living as a musician for a number of years. Was a bassoonist. Went to Oberlin, left there with plenty of work. So I never, even though I was attempted to do the grad school thing a couple of times, never did because I always had work. Then something happened where all of a sudden I began to realize there was something in me that had existed from the very beginning, and that was I was always far more interested in other people's art than I was in my own. And it became, quite honestly, I became very bored with just playing, and I had an opportunity to run what are the noontime concert series at Trinity Cathedral, and went on and did that and did a lot in the community arts uh, area there, and actually taught some stuff at Baldwin Wallace in uh,
I know
public
that place
interest.
a little bit.
Yeah, you know that place a little well. And then, one thing led to another, and I had a very short life as a artist representative, although basically what I was doing was pushing paper, doing visas and and taxes for international musicians coming
Well,
into the
that's
States.
important work. I mean,
Yeah. And when Daniel Hathaway retired from Trinity Cathedral, one of the things he wanted to do was to start this online thing. Well, we didn't even know what it was, but it would be a 2-week calendar of all of the classical music events in Northeast Ohio. And there was a group of people who started writing things, started writing criticism. And at one point, actually, a colleague of mine from Oberlin, Bill Fazekas, who was one of many people may remember him when he was here, said, "You should start writing." And I said, "Nah, I don't want to write. I have nothing to say." And he's like, "I've known you for this so many years. You always have something to say." And so I started doing it, and life has changed completely. But it's really amazing because I learn something new every day. I come in contact with new artists that I haven't known before, organizations that I've really gotten to know from the ground up with this, and I'm just having a blast with it. So sorry, long-winded answer. That's how it happened, but that's how it happens, I think, for most critics. They just find
yeah,
themselves there.
and it was
Yeah.
great. I mean, it's why you're here to talk about how you got to here. So you'd mentioned that you have training, and maybe one of the few critics that has training as a musician. How does that inform your work and what you're able to bring to the table? And how do you? I know you do teaching with the Rubin Institute.
Yeah.
So how does that factor into what you try to equip your students with and the aspiring music
Mhm.
critics.
Yeah. Well, just to correct here, sorry, the journalist coming out in me.
Oh no, please
I
do.
teach music journalism at Oberlin, and I take my students to the Rubin Institute.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
yeah, I don't want to step on any of my critic pals who actually are on the faculty there.
Oh,
So
good. No, thank you for
yeah,
clarifying. That's
yeah.
I just
So
I just suggest where people might go on stage. That's
uh,
all.
okay,
Thank you.
no, that's good. But how does that, it has its pros and cons, to be quite honest. The first part is to not get hung up if you know if you know a score very well. Sometimes you can know it too well. Sometimes you have too much experience with it, and you can't, for example, and I've seen this with students too, oh, I just really loved the way the bassoon played that line, or the clarinet was out of tune here. You have to step back and say, does that really have anything to do with the overall performance? So sometimes it's stepping back and going in with a broad, broad scope, if that
Definitely.
makes any sense. Yeah,
Oh, definitely.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
So with ClevelandClassical.com, can
Hmm.
you unpack that a little bit? I mean, obviously you serve greater Cleveland community, but
Hmm.
what's the scope? What's the footprint? How do you approach it, in a way that maybe other media outlets they might focus on something else. So what's your footprint?
Yeah, well, it was designed primarily to be a local Northeast Ohio publication. We cover everything from the Youngstown area out to just to the west, all the way out to Sandusky. We do some things out there, and as far south as Canton
Oh wow.
and Worcester. So,
Big
and we
large footprint.
very large footprint. And when I say cover, most of that is into the calendar listing, events that are happening and
Mhm.
things. We certainly cannot review all of those things and all of those venues. And but yeah, we do cover that area. We've got, well, before this whole situation arose,
There's
we
something
had,
happening?
yeah, yeah, we had about 7 writers
Yeah.
writing for us. So, and
And how does, or how did one, and how will one become a
mhm.
writer? Are they folks that you've seen their work, or they've reached out and you look at samples? How does that all come about?
Oh, yes, definitely. Well, it's interesting because our 1 3/4 time person, Jarrett Hoffman, which many people may know, he came out of Oberlin. He was one of our students. In fact, he was one of our first students, and just we offered him some jobs writing, and he went off to grad school in New York and all of this, but he wouldn't let it go. He just kept writing for us, and he's become now one of our go-to guys. I mean, we couldn't survive without him, to be
Yeah.
honest. And the other writers, yeah, we put out a call, send us some things. And the Rubin Institute actually has also produced
Mhm.
some people for us.
Right. Oh,
So,
that's like a
how,
nice
yeah.
with it.
However, to back up, it's important we do keep very close ties to Northeast Ohio.
Hmm.
I think the best advice we ever rejected was to become a franchise and start creating
Insert the name of your city,
city.
classical.com.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, maybe we should be doing something with the Columbus Symphony or the Cincinnati Symphony, which isn't to say that we won't, but we only do it under the right circumstances.
Yeah.
um
That makes
uh
them into great organizations.
yes, exactly. There's so much great art here. And so the thing also is, like, if we're going to write a feature, or more often this comes up in CD reviews, um, you know, uh, there are so many. We just we have to be very careful. It's like you have to be an artist who has a very strong connection to the area,
Yeah.
meaning you either reside here or you are here on a, you have some kind of residency here
Hmm.
for
Yeah,
at least
residence
part
there.
of
You're from here, and you keep
here.
giving back to the area.
Area.
Okay.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And as much as we've had to turn down some wonderful offers just because we were out of writer time and money.
Mm.
The fact that you just went to one of our numerous wonderful music schools in the area, but haven't lived here since, isn't really enough for us. So,
Right. No,
yeah.
that'll make sense. So, a question for you, and we're
Hmm.
in the midst of this global pandemic, and
Hmm.
everybody is struggling, and hopefully everybody is staying as safe and healthy as possible.
Hmm.
All industries are taking a hit. Performing arts are taking a hit, especially opera. When the very thing we do is high risk for transmission, and so with things going digital and online, will you be reviewing things now that are online? Let's say, hey, Mike, here's the link for our upcoming concert on Saturday.
Oh.
Check it out. Like, how does this work, and how has that impacted the way you review work?
Well, we already are doing that. And did and boy, how do I say this? We will be reviewing. We've reviewed some online things that are. I'm sorry. I have to start over. It's been fun to watch the evolution of what has been put online. It, at the very beginning, everybody felt like they needed to give people entertainment and or stay relevant somehow.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of DIY things, performances happening.
Mhm.
And those are very difficult to review. And in fact, we chose not to actually review them the way we would a live, the way we had been reviewing under the same criteria that we would have reviewed a live performance up
Mhm.
until then. Now people are stepping back a little bit, and they're really high doing it. They've had people have had to become audio and visual engineers
Yes.
to a
Yes.
high, as we were talking about before coming on, very quickly. And some of the people and organizations, festivals, individual artists are now actually producing things that are more like television shows,
Mhm.
you know. And so we're excited. It's just, I can't believe everything has evolved so fast.
Yeah. It's had to.
Mm,
It's been
yeah.
it's been its scramble. It's been exciting. I mean, not to minimize the extreme challenges and hardships that everybody's facing, but the one positive, could be that with opera, it's 400 plus year old art form, and we
Hmm.
we have opportunity feels like the wrong thing to call it, but we have the opportunity to explore and create and do some new things with a sense of infancy and a sense of urgency that wasn't always there. So
Hmm.
again, I'm not making light of the hardship that it definitely is, but I was
Right.
trying to see some silver lining.
Yeah, yeah. And you just go with it. You know what it is. It's interesting because it's almost like a cliche, or it is a cliche to say that, artists are creative people. It's sort of like you go, duh, but and they're smart. They can learn how to do things. And it's like,
We're
okay.
trying. I feel like if I turned my camera around, I've got so much technology here on the desk that I've been exploring, and video and audio editing and green screens and black
Hmm.
screens and white screens and all the various things. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot of interesting stuff that I used to be into in high school, and I thought, oh,
Hmm.
okay, well that's coming back around. This is good.
Right, right. Well, it's funny for me, I've always been a person who, well, basically I'm pretty lazy. And so
I know. You work pretty hard.
yeah, I've attempted, always attempted to answer questions like with technology. It's like, well, when I need to know how to do that, I'll learn it.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden I'm faced with, oh, I need to learn a lot very quickly,
And it's
so.
it's incredible. I know that Domenico, our music director, principal conductor, he's been doing a lot of heavy lifting with some video editing
Mm-hmm.
on we've got the Barber of Seville mini series running.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
opened last Saturday with that. So what we did was we took what was to be the last two of our three free summer concerts, the July 25 one and the August 30 one. We sort of sandwiched those and said, okay, episode one, finale episode, and then weekly we're going to
Ah.
premiere these episodes of Figaro and try
Mm-hmm.
some different things and look at it as entertainment and just
Mm-hmm.
pre-pandemic, I don't think that I would have ever thought, yes, our music director, illustrious conductor, will become a video editing expert within the next 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Yeah.
incredible how quickly it's shifting.
Hmm.
But
But it's also, I want to give a lot of credit to Cleveland Opera Theater because you didn't close up shop. You figured out what was needed in the area, you know. And as a writer, that's something I'm always looking for is
yeah,
the community relevance. How are you remaining relevant to the community? And you've taken this opportunity not to bemoan the fact that you're not doing huge productions right now, but taking a time to engage with the population, and
yeah,
I think
that's,
that's really good.
that's what we're
Yeah.
hoping for. We
Hmm.
get
Yeah.
really really talented team. Just
Hmm.
the stuff that everybody's pulling together and like keeping up the spirits and just being creative. So I'm excited to see all the things we're able to do. Our hope is that we keep engaging the community with relevant
Hmm.
programming. We're seeing that we're having a pretty broad reach.
Mm.
Numbers are high. Touching communities that we otherwise might not because of geography,
Hmm.
collaborations. Whether it's on this Page to Stage series or
Hmm.
Domenico's Maestro's Corner.
Hmm.
Just people from all over the globe that were able to say, well,
Ah.
we couldn't afford to fly you in to do a
Hmm.
library chat, but we can zoom you in from wherever you are and get to chat with you and give our audience a chance to get to know you. So I'm
Hmm.
hoping that we're learning about what we can do with technology, provide some
Hmm.
things that are meaningful, and then hopefully sooner rather than later, when we can return to some type of live performance, we're able to maybe positively augment what we're
Hmm.
doing. Some stuff might remain digital only, or other
Hmm.
things might be, enriched content that lives
Hmm.
on this thing. So at intermission, you're grabbing a drink and you're, drilling into something and saying, "Oh, whoa, I just discovered something to look for in Act Two."
Hmm.
So we're
Hmm.
trying to remain optimistic and positive and
Hmm. Well,
creative.
the what you're saying, I think, is great, and you're one of many organizations that I have had this same experience, including ClevelandClassical.com. That all of a sudden, when you really got over everything and you started getting back to work, if you will, all of a sudden you realized without even thinking about it, you were becoming part of the global community in a
Yeah,
way that you had never thought about before.
right.
And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's interesting. That those the possibilities in the future are very interesting because of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so we've had on this series, we've had scenic designers, technical directors, projection, lighting, costume design, conductors, everybody involved in some way or the other is saying, okay, here's the page, there's the stage. What is
Hmm.
that journey like? So on that journey, how would you say the role of the music critic fits in? And I would say like it could be multi-part. It could be just in general, how does that fit in the normal arc? And also, you've known Cleveland Opera Theater for a long time. I gotten to see
Hmm.
it develop. So how have we been able to interface, and how has that helped our growth?
Yeah, well, interesting. I was happy when you sent me little bits of what you were going to ask today, because I did, as I said, I did have some time to think about it. And all of a sudden I realized what a long history I do have with Cleveland Opera Theater, going back. But first I'd like to start by putting one thing, and that is my definition of what a critique is, whether that no matter what kind, a critique. It's just one person's opinion on any given day about one performance during a finite period of time on any given day. And that's all it is. you know. And so I think for artists, and what is interesting even as a writer, it's the body of work that comes out in the press. You know, what are other people saying? What are other people saying about it in other parts of the country, in other parts of the world? You know, that's where you draw this assessment. So I just wanted to put that out, you know.
No, that's good. I'm sure you've seen Ratatouille, right?
Oh yes, uh-huh.
That
Yeah.
great, that Ego Anton, that great speech
Ah,
he gives at the end, that review. Oh, it's
no.
awesome. I listen to that anytime I get, bad reviews. I'm like, okay, let me lift my spirits by listening to that.
Yes, yes. Well, artists, you know, they're the meekest person, of which there are plenty in the arts industry. Um, there are shy people, but face it, you can't. Everyone has an ego.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you got to have a thick skin and like you said,
Yes.
embrace. It's something we
Hmm.
talk about with students all the time and say,
Hmm.
look, Fischer Dieskau papered the wall of his guest bathroom with all of
Hmm.
his bad reviews,
Hmm.
and it's, and you can't let him get you down and
Right,
that
right.
type of thing. So it's good to have that perspective.
But it's funny because then the other thing right after this that I jotted down was part of reading the review is, or even to get a correct assessment for a preview. It's like, how is the writer coming from an informed point of view? Number
Mhm.
one, do they know anything about the art form?
Right.
Are they familiar with the composer? Are they familiar with the story? Are they familiar with the company?
Hmm.
All of these things, knowing your beat in writing about the arts is so important, just like any other part of journalism. You know, and so you do have these connections, and there are relationships with organizations. So that said, how does this go into a page to stage? I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert really when it comes to opera, much more than I am on this. But it seems to me that previews, inviting the press in to see the sausage being made, it happens a lot more in, say, theater, spoken word theater,
Hmm.
perhaps choreography and things, more than it happens in the writing of a symphony.
Hmm.
And I believe also more than it happens in the composition of an opera.
Yeah,
So,
I think so. A lot of times, I mean, you all have been great though about covering Nowfest. Just our, developing new work and being able to see works as they grow and develop. But yeah, it probably, I guess, on the whole, just the process of creating an opera can either be really protracted or it's happening in one place and then it comes to the stage.
mhm,
And the other thing another aspect of it that I've always thought of is, it would be great to find some kind of way to accelerate the process somehow, for theater or movies or whatever,
mhm,
you send the final cut to people. They
mhm,
give their opinion. You can
mhm,
create a trailer. You've got all the imagery, but with a company like ours, limited budget, but also one that does new productions every time we
mhm,
present something, we don't have anything to draw upon.
mhm,
The production images and footage and everything is amazing
mhm,
from our recent production of Bohème, but leading into it, we couldn't use it. We couldn't say, oh, let's use the production has toured and now it's opening on Broadway and we have this great reel. So
mhm.
I don't know. I'd be interested in your thoughts about how to, for an opera schedule that typically says you have about 2 weeks from the time when all of the cast is in town to when you open, give or
Mhm,
take, sometime, between 2 and 3 weeks. How do you maximize that and build that interest and build that excitement so that
mhm,
people can come and experience? And
mhm,
you've been awesome about that. I remember, I think it was Le Nozze di Figaro, where you
mhm,
came to opening night and it made an impact on you, and you said, "Hey, I'm going to do a rapid review."
mhm.
Because usually the reviews will come out after the production, but you
Yeah.
said, hey, this is just to try and get as many people possible. So I know that's a lot of stuff, but just
Mhm.
your ideas on all that.
Well, you know, it's funny, and I think your company is one of the few that I'm, if not the only one, that I've ever had direct contact with where I was invited to come in and watch some rehearsals in order to make it part of the preview.
Yeah. I think
And
it's important. That way, like you
yeah.
said, you get to see how the sausage is being made,
Hmm.
and kind of see where it is, and
Hmm.
we try to time that so we can say, okay, enough of the
Hmm.
framework is there that you won't
Hmm.
look at it and say, oh, geez, this is going to be very terrible and boring.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
just say, oh, okay, it's rehearsed, it's together,
Hmm.
etc.
But I'll tell you, the Now Festival, and following this, the opera in development, Barb, uh,
Bernardalba.
yes, exactly. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I
No worries,
forgot.
no worries.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. So
Yeah. And, that was a learning experience. That has been a learning experience. And
that's
it's
for
all,
us too.
yeah, yeah, because you're never part of or witness to anything that goes back to just singing through the first
Hmm.
few bars, the characters and things like this, which like what happened like a couple years ago during
Yeah,
the Now Festival.
yeah.
And it's also, again, that's like a lot of homework that needs to be done. I
Yes, it
can
is.
I can see why a lot of times writers shy away from that, because how can you say the libretto isn't any good or I don't like the libretto if you've never read the novel?
Right. Right. Yeah, you have to read the whole, final Lorca play to put it in context and then,
Uh-huh.
think about, okay, well, that was in Spanish and this was based
Hmm.
on, Caridad's English translation, and then we've
Hmm.
got this English and Spanish libretto going on. So it does
Yeah.
put a lot of onus on you. So thank you for putting in that work.
Yeah. Well, I needed to do more, and look forward to doing more. We'll have to talk about what the future of that opera holds,
Yeah.
but what I heard, with that, what I heard musically was beautiful.
Oh yeah, Griffin's very talented.
Yeah,
Just
was
a great team
absolutely
between he and Caridad, just
hmm yeah.
and
Yeah,
all
if you don't mind me just continuing, it's sort of like it was beautiful, really wrote very well for the cast. I thought it fit them quite well. It's always the same problem, as when you have almost a totally high voiced cast.
hmm
And I thought it was interesting to see how he was trying to solve that problem to make the colors as expansive as possible. And I
Yeah.
thought Griffin was taking that to heart very
Oh
much.
yeah, totally. Yeah, and we'll still
Yeah.
we'll still be working on it,
Hmm.
as we go. I don't want I can't spill all the beans, but
Oh.
it's still there's still energy behind it, and we
Hmm.
will eventually bring it from the page to the full stage.
Stage, yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly, exactly. So yeah, well, I can't wait to see how that develops.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
So, I've been watching. I'm sure everybody, people are becoming expert bakers, or they're getting super fit. All kinds of things. Have you developed anything in particular during your quarantine time or the social distance time? New skills, new
Oh.
hobbies?
I, I don't know if I've any new skills. I've always loved to cook, and I'm finding a lot of, you know, different things to cook that you haven't tried simply because you have more time to do it.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who really does not go out to eat. I mean, being in quarantine, as far as meals go, has been a joy because I have to eat at home and I enjoy cooking.
Yeah.
And, so I wasn't a person who went out to eat very often
Well,
anyway.
having
So
had dined with you at your home, you're an excellent cook.
yeah,
You're a great
well,
chef.
thanks.
So,
Yeah,
everybody listening, you should do
yeah,
like a fundraiser for
uh,
ClevelandClassicalcom, and just,
yeah,
you can win a dinner by Chef
so,
Telin.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you. You're far too kind.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Well, also, but to answer, it's like finishing. I'm a huge fan of the Norwegian author Karl Ove Knausgaard, and I have never completed his sixth volume of his epic novel, which is a novel about a writer writing a novel that is, and the 6th volume is like 1,300 pages.
Oh my gosh.
And so I just started that. So I'm very getting back into, I actually went and finished the Steg Larsson, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Millennium series. So
Mhm.
finished that. Getting into some other things I've never read. I'm a huge fan of this Israeli writer, Edgar Keret, who is like a Kafka. He's you want theater of the absurd. I mean, this is not for everyone. You have to really
Yeah.
be into the absurd,
Well,
and
this sounds
that's,
like a good reading list here. So
yeah, it's something that I am.
yeah, I'm hoping to unplug a little bit. I mentioned right before we got online, so I'll have to come back
Yeah.
to that and see if I can do some reading. I can't remember the last time I've had
Mhm.
time for the luxury just to sit and read. So I'm
Oh,
hoping for some of that soon.
yeah, yeah. So that's been fun.
Yeah.
That's been fun, but it was difficult to try to work that into the everyday routine,
Yeah.
because this is something you usually wait until you're going on holiday or something. And now it's like, oh my gosh, it's now 6 o'clock and I don't have anything to go to.
I know. And
What
you have the luxury of just like you get to go to a lot of things
Oh,
normally, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
and it's always really fun, especially when you don't have to write about them. I actually enjoy very much going to things of people concerts that I've previewed,
hmm.
just so you can really have a nice conversation with the artists and thank
Yeah.
them for talking to you, and just take it in
Right.
as an audience member is really fun. So.
So one last question for you, and this
Um,
what you said made me think of it. Sometimes people will ask artists, directors, conductors, can you ever really just sit and enjoy a production, or are you always looking at processing things? So as a critical writer,
mhm.
do you have a mental switch? Can you flip it and say, I am just enjoying, or is there always that little like, what about this?
Uh, no, you can't just enjoy anything. Sometimes you feel like you just have to. What I do is I have these mental slappings that I can give to myself of just say, you know what, just enjoy it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
just,
totally.
just enjoy it. You
I
know.
usually try to when I go, I try to sit in the back
Hmm.
because what I love to do when I go, like I can't turn it off. But
Hmm.
what I try to do is channel it in a direction to say, all right, what can I learn tonight in the
Hmm.
theater? And if I'll sit down and I pity anybody who ever sits behind me. So that's why I always try to sit in the back. But I'm looking at all the lighting positions. When I come in, I go down to the pit rail to look up and kind of like see everything I can.
Hmm.
And so as I'm watching, I can say, "Oh, okay, wow, this is really interesting what they're doing," or "Oh,
Hmm.
wow, that really worked." I'm going to think about, that kind of application of this thing, or patterns of movements. I try to turn it to the okay. Let me see what I can learn from this and like get a great idea
Hmm.
before, because yeah, it's hard to turn it off.
Yeah, I agree, and I do the same thing. And I must say, well, there is part of me, like if I'm reviewing, but even if I'm just attending, I really try to find a place where I'm not going to disturb the other audience members, because
Mhm.
it's impossible for me to sit still, you know.
Is there a? I know I said one last question, but I keep thinking of more.
Mhm.
Um, is there when you're teaching or when folks are teaching, is there an ideal place to sit? Like, let's say you're going to hear the orchestra. I imagine you want the primo acoustic location. And, when I think about tickets, so we're having a conversation about, where are we putting the press tickets? I've usually walked around the house and I'll say, okay, here's the best stage picture, here's good leg room, and also a balance of acoustics. Is there something like that that's talked about? Because nobody ever said, hey, if you're going to seat a critic, do this. But is there sort of like a code that's either spoken or unspoken about how to request seats or where critics normally like to?
Yes, there is. I know. I'm not myself very forceful about it. I'm always just happy just to have a seat, quite
Yeah.
honestly. And since most of the time, as I've said, I don't end up sitting in it anyway, I end up finding something else that just feels better,
Yeah.
a little more leg room and things. Uh, but yeah, organizations, this is why I love dealing with organizations that say, hey, would you like some tickets? Do you have any preference of where you would like to be seated and
Mhm.
things? And my usual answer is, because halls, you know what they are,
Mhm.
and you know where to sit. I know exactly where I like sitting, and the Cleveland Orchestra is gracious enough to accommodate that way. You guys are always gracious enough to accommodate in the
You sit
place.
right behind that pole where you get it. No, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. But I prefer, always prefer an aisle.
Mhm.
Again, I just get so claustrophobic, and I am probably pretty annoying to the person who's sitting next to me because it's impossible for me to sit still.
Yeah.
I get excited about the
Yeah.
music.
It's always kind of
Music,
moving around.
yeah, and music is causes a physical reaction.
Yeah. And I always like to be, even though, depending on the situation with the union crew or whatever, I always
Mhm,
like to be somewhere where I can make it to backstage if
mhm.
something is going wrong. And,
Right.
I've been in places where things will happen and I've actually had to like climb out of risers and like pop back,
Mhm,
not in, IATSE unions houses or situations, but just,
mhm,
where I could lend a hand. So it's always
mhm,
good to kind of have that escape route.
mhm. Yeah, and also I think with seating, an escape route is that. Can I confess something? The
Sure.
minute you arrive is, how quickly am I going to get out of here?
If it's super terrible, oh, I wasn't feeling well. I had a bad piece of fish. I had to leave.
Oh, no, I don't mean leaving early. But although I have done that only once, but well, that's a long story.
That'll be the
Um,
next time. We'll have
yeah,
page to stage after hours.
yes. But that is, you just want to get out of there, and
Yeah.
and that's another thing to realize when it comes to the audience, that your work is their entertainment,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
don't want to sit around and be kept after the hours at their daily job.
Mhm.
And I'd like to get home
Right.
because it's late and I need to get up in the morning,
Yeah.
you know. So
All good
yeah.
stuff. Well, Mike, thanks for making time to be with us today. It's
It's
great to see
fun.
you.
Oh, it's great to see you too.
Yeah, I'll
So
look
yeah,
forward to the next time we can be
yeah.
together, and I'll be sure to get you some links to
Oh,
upcoming things if you want to do any
oh,
virtual reviews.
oh, cool. Yeah, please do. Please
Yeah,
do.
all right. Well, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Hope you're staying safe
Yeah,
and
yeah.
enjoying enjoying the weather in a social distance safe way. So
Yeah,
look forward
and
to being with you
thanks to
soon.
the audience. I don't know who's out there, but thanks so much for tuning in and
Yeah,
supporting the work that Cleveland Opera Theater does,
yeah,
which is
absolutely.
very good.
Thank you.
So yeah, and maybe next time we'll both have haircuts by then.
Yeah, I have got the full quarantine going
Yeah,
here. So
I'm
yeah.
working on mine. So yeah. So, okay,
All right.
cool.
Well, thank you, Mike.